Intellectual property, whether you realize it or not, is probably your most valuable asset. For
Okay.
most brands, IP is your most valuable asset, and you want to make sure that it is protected as quickly as possible.
Check out the website simplepassivecashflow.com for podcasts, videos, articles, and free e-courses. If you guys have any specific questions, feel free to reach out to the team via email and we'll get you pointed in the right direction, whether it be an educational course or information about syndication deals. If you haven't read my book, The Journey to Simple Passive Cashflow, click the link below to get a free copy. Thanks to John and the Wealth and Freedom Nexus podcast. Our team is here to help you take the first step, or if you're a seasoned investor, then we're here to expand your reach into alternative investing.
Are you tired of trying to keep ahead in the rat race, only to have so much of your hard-earned money going to the tax collector? Equity doesn't pay the bills. Retirement savings don't pay you now, and there are only 24 hours in a day to work. The only solution is passive income that pays you 24/7 now, not 40 years from now. From vetted investment opportunities to tax saving strategies. Let John guide you through all the confusion and take control of your financial life in pursuit of financial freedom. So sit back, relax, and welcome to the Wealth and Freedom Nexus.
This week's podcast is brought to you by Focus Wealth Group. Do you know you need to get life insurance, but don't know where to start or how much to get? Have you heard of infinite banking, but not sure how it works? Reach out to Barry Brooksby and his team. Barry is not only a mentor, but a friend who has helped me for the past 6 years in my pursuit of cash flow and financial independence. Their mission is simple. They teach people how to make money and hold on to more money. Learn more and set up your free initial consultation at focuswealthgroup.com.
Hey there, welcome back to another great episode of the Wealth and Freedom Nexus podcast. As always, I'm John Rickgarn, your host, investor, educator, and realtor. Now, for starters, I have done the best that I can to mute the lovely construction noise that's going right behind my office on Lion Street. Granted, I'm not an engineer, but it just seems like the last week, the whole process has dealt with digging up a big hole and then filling up that hole, and then another company comes in, they dig that back up and then dig another hole and then fill that back up, and hence why all the noise. So I've done the best with some editing and some muting to hopefully drown that out, but if that comes through, I just want to apologize for that in advance. For those listening and downloading this here in good old Marshall, Minnesota, you obviously know what I'm talking about here. Now, in addition to Marshall, Minnesota, as I'm recording this, we just had another episode drop. If this is your first time joining us, be sure to hit that subscribe button on whatever your favorite podcast platform is, Apple or Spotify or iHeart, or if you're using Stitcher, actually, I want to make sure that you move that. Stitcher is actually going bye-bye. Honestly, not sure when. I know it's sometime here in 2023. I'm personally not a Stitcher fan. I've never really used it, but apparently there's a good following of that. So just wanted to interject that in as well, that depending on when you're listening to this, Stitcher may be completely gone, but just as a heads up in case you're maybe still having, you're wondering why I haven't got any new podcast downloads. Speaking of downloads, just again, thank you to all my loyal listeners that download this every single week. It's always interesting to see what pops up on the feed for new towns where this podcast has been downloaded. It's kind of a geography lesson. So like just today, Minneapolis, Minnesota, big surprise. Slayton, Minnesota, my hometown. Thank you for whoever's downloading it there. St. Paul, Minnesota, big surprise. Marshall, Minnesota, big surprise. I'm getting some in Worthington, though, just 60 miles to the south of us. So whoever the listener or listeners in Worthington, Minnesota, thank you. But then some other towns, Henderson, Nevada, I know of that. Fort Worth, Texas, know of them. Scottsdale, Arizona, Fort Myers, Florida, know of them. Urbandale, Iowa. But for the listeners in, hope I pronounce this right, Cornelius, North Carolina, Cypress, California, Mooresville, North Carolina, and Coatesville, Pennsylvania. I hope I pronounced all those towns correctly. But again, I just want to thank you for your patronage and, of course, your support. Always be sure to go to wfreedomnexus.com. We'll be constantly updating that website with new links and resources for you to download, as well as subscribe to my monthly newsletter. I do not spam you. I don't sell your contact information. I don't reach out to you, daily with emails and texts and all this other crap that a lot of spammers out there unfortunately tend to do. So when I say subscribe, you will not be spammed. I truly mean that. I do not share or sell the contact information. That's just in my own database and updates with newsletters, and then my blog if and when I ever get that going back on a consistent basis. But between this podcast and my YouTube channel, as well as my IT print consulting gigs, substitute and adjunct teaching, real estate investing, and my activities as a real estate agent, which, knock on wood, 2023 is shaping up to be my best year. Between all those, and oh yeah, I have a 2-year-old son, I keep plenty busy. So anyways, enough about me, enough of those updates. Again, thank you for all the listenership and patronage out there. This guest, I wanted to bring on another kind of focusing more on the legal aspects, which I've wanted to do from the get-go when I launched this podcast in 2021, but have not really gotten much traction on that. So obviously we've touched base on, asset protection internationally as well as nationally. Depending on when you're listening to this, you can go back to episode 35, which was the first episode that I had on that as far as asset protection and what's that all entails with Bobby Casey of Global Wealth Protection. But then you could also, a little bit more recently, episode 99, where I had Toby Mathis from Anderson Advisors on. That was actually one of my favorite episodes to record. So I guess I've had 2 episodes so far touching base on the legal aspects, but this is really getting more into kind of a niche or nuanced area. And this is all encompassing. This is intellectual property. When you hear intellectual property, you want to think of trademarks, copyrights, content. If you have a podcast like I do, if you have a website, a business, content for, pictures or videos or courses, I'm not going to go through the laundry list, but just think of anything digital or anything that you physically can't hold or touch. That's kind of what trademarks, registrations, and copyrights entail. And a lot of small business owners particularly don't take the necessary steps to protect this. Sometimes this can just kind of be a nuisance, if you will, but can also lead to loss of business. If there's, my guest and I will talk about trolling, what that entails, where people, and I shouldn't say people, I should just say organizations, law firms, unfortunately, they just scour the internet and, oh, are they properly registered? Do they have all the trademarks in place? Oh, they don't. Let's look into this. Oh, they don't have very deep pockets. They're not a Walt Disney or a Comcast or a Dave Ramsey or anything like that, where they have millions of dollars at their disposal. Hey, let's do a cease and desist letter, or let's hijack their trademark, so to speak. That's been unfortunately another legal term, so to speak. And like I said, can be a nuisance, but can actually rob your business of all the work and effort that you put into it. So today's guest is Andrea Sager, who started the Legalpreneur around about the same time that I started the Wealth and Freedom Nexus, early 2020. Now, she focuses solely on the small and medium businesses. She is not a huge law firm like Anderson Advisors or anything like that, focusing on the small and medium-sized businesses, not only small in terms of scope, but small as far as budgets are concerned. So if you are a content creator, if you have had or will have in the future courses, or looking at publishing a book, a album, a soundtrack, I could just name off a number of things, but pretty much any type of content that you physically can't hold. That's more on the lines of patents that we'll go into very, very briefly. This is definitely one you want to listen in. I actually took some notes on this. I filed a trademark with my name and logo. As far as I know, it's still in good standing, but there's definitely some things that I still need to do to protect my business and make sure that I have my I's dotted and my T's crossed, so to speak. So with that, we'll go get into my interview with Andrea with the Legalpreneur after a word from one of our sponsors.
Check out the website simplepassivecashflow.com for podcasts, videos, articles, and free e-courses. If you guys have any specific questions, feel free to reach out to the team via email and we'll get you pointed in the right direction, whether it be an educational course or information about syndication deals. If you haven't read my book, The Journey to Simple Passive Cashflow, click the link below to get a free copy. Thanks to John and the Wealth and Freedom Nexus podcast. Our team is here to help you take the first step, or if you're a seasoned investor, then we're here to expand your reach into alternative investing.
Andrea, welcome to the show. Thanks for coming on and educating my listeners.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, you bet. So now maybe if we can take a step back first, if for my listeners that have never heard of you and your firm, can you kind of give us a brief background, or, how'd you get started and how'd you come up with your firm?
Yeah. So honestly, I'm just a serial entrepreneur, and I started my first business in law school. Not that I wasn't busy enough, but I was poor and I needed to make money. And I was like, oh, I'll just start a business. Like, it's no big deal.
Yeah.
And not that that was a successful business, but it gave me a lot of the entrepreneur skills that I have today. And it actually created the network that I used to really get my firm off the ground. So when I graduated from law school, I actually had the big dream job at the big fancy firm. I wanted to work in big law. That was, a lifelong dream of mine. And, I got it. I had the job. And then very, very quickly, like the first week, I was like, oh no, this is not for me. I clearly remember sitting. So I was in Cincinnati, Ohio at the time. Beautiful office on the 38th floor overlooking the Cincinnati Reds Stadium. I'm a huge baseball fan, so I thought it was the coolest thing ever. Like, it was beautiful from the outside looking in, but I was absolutely miserable. And I remember the first week I was sitting in my office and there's like all these old men in 3-piece suits walking by. And I remember sitting there and it just hit me. I was like, oh my God. I was like, they have been here since they were my age, these 70-year-old men. And I was like, oh my, I was like, I can't sit here for the next 30 or 40 years of my life. Like, I physically cannot do that. So I was slowly trying to plan my exit, like my first week there. But my husband at the time, he was staying home trying to figure out what he wanted to do for his career. And I just couldn't leave. And then luckily about 7 months later, I was politely let go with a severance package. I'll never forget that day. That was the best day of my life. And
you're probably like, oh, thank you so much. Wait,
yes.
what? I don't normally hear that.
Well, it took everything in me to not look excited when they were firing me. I was already planning my exit. And at this point, what's really funny, Monday, we had put our house for sale because we were in Cincinnati. We were going to move to Houston, which is where I am now.
Okay.
And so Monday, we put the house for sale. Wednesday, I remember texting my husband at the time and saying, hey, like, I am absolutely miserable. I'm ready to quit. I think we have enough money to hold us over. Like, can I just quit today? And he said, why don't you wait until we have a contract on the house? That way we know what's going to sell, and we're not just waiting on a contract. I'm like, you know what? Perfectly makes sense. Like, I will do that. Well, then that Friday they walk into my office.
Oh, geez.
And yeah, they're like, they give me two options. It was like a, performance improvement plan, or I can just like take the severance now. And I was like, gotcha. I am gone. I am out of here.
Give me the severance.
That was the best day. And so literally that night I launched my firm and I immediately had clients, and it's not always been, roses and sunshine, definitely ups and downs, but I think that was one of those signs from the universe. It's like, yes, you're absolutely on the right path. This is going to work out. It's going to be okay. And I personally have just been a fan of small businesses because I am a small business owner and I've always been a small business owner. So really what I didn't like about the firm was that I could not help the small businesses. Oh, okay. So that's always been my passion, is just helping the small business owner, go up against, the big guy, because who else is going to help them without spending an arm and a leg?
Right.
So in a nutshell, that's how my law firm came to be.
Gotcha. Okay. Interesting. Yeah. And I can definitely relate to, like you said, helping small businesses. I kind of the serial entrepreneur. When people ask me, what do you do? Well, I'm a real estate agent, I'm a real estate investor, I'm a podcaster, I do IT sales consultant. Maybe serial entrepreneur is just a better way to sum all that up. So
Yep.
yeah. So when you launched your firm, how did you come up with and I apologize if I flubbed this, but the Legalpreneur?
Yeah. So that actually came about in 2019. So I
Okay.
launched the firm in 2018. And I knew a goal of mine was to eventually sell or get out of practicing. I didn't want to be a practicing attorney forever.
Okay.
And with the law firm being my name, my personal brand, I knew, okay, I have to start another brand. That way that's what I'm going to sell. So in
Gotcha.
2019, we started the Legalpreneur membership in the law firm.
Okay.
And so that started in the law firm. However, 2020, we started, and this is going to get like all different structures. So we started Legalpreneur LLC in 2020. We launched the Contract Vault. That was the first product in the Legalpreneur company. So at that point, Legalpreneur was kind of the side hustle to slowly start building the Legalpreneur brand even more.
Okay.
And then at the end of 2021, at the end of 2020, I started going through my divorce. And then that whole next year was just like surviving. And then at the end of 2021, we just had there was a lot going on in both businesses. Legalpreneur, the company, was doing well. The membership in the law firm was doing well. And I knew something had to change. And I had this idea before I went through my divorce, but that took a back burner because of the divorce. So then at the end of 2021, I was like, oh, it's time to revisit this, where we take the membership out of Legalpreneur and take the membership out of the law firm and put it in Legalpreneur, because now it's time to really start building out the Legalpreneur platform.
Okay.
So since the end of 2021, that's really what we have been full-time in, is Legalpreneur, the company.
Okay.
And we're still always changing things. However, the law firm is still a thing. Legalpreneur is the main focus in order to build that to sell.
Gotcha. Okay. Makes sense. Now with obviously helping small businesses, and I know just enough to be dangerous, but when there's talking of, every business has intellectual property, and there's copyright, there's trademarks, there's registered trademarks, there's patents. Sure, there's a couple other things I'm missing in there, but what exactly, maybe in simple layman's terms, what are all those? And what's the difference between a patent and a trademark and a registered trademark and a copyright?
Yeah. So all of that is intellectual property.
Okay.
And intellectual property, whether you realize it or not, is probably your most valuable asset. For most brands, IP is your most valuable asset. And you want to make sure that it is protected as quickly as possible. So patents, those are inventions. That's about the extent of patents that I know. You do have to take a separate patent bar as an attorney. So I am definitely not a patent attorney. However, trademarks and copyrights, that is my jam.
Gotcha.
Trademarks are that's my favorite. I'm currently ranked number 27 out of 40,000 trademark attorneys in the United States.
Wow, that's impressive.
Yeah, that's where I like to toot my own horn. I actually slept on that ranking for a while, because most of the rankings are just like, oh, top lawyers or this or that. But then I really looked at it, and they actually really did aggregate, all the data. And I was like, oh, this is actually something to be proud of. So really, I am actually really proud of that. So trademarks, this is your brand identity. This is anything that identifies your brand name, your logo, a slogan, a product name, a service name, your podcast name, anything that has a unique name within your business. It can probably be protected with a trademark.
Okay.
Then copyrights are content. It's your creative work, the things you're creating on a consistent basis. So photos, videos, blog posts, your website copy, this podcast recording, all of the consistent content you're creating most likely is a copyright. As long as it's unique and original, it's a copyright. Now, one quick way to help you know the difference between trademarks and copyrights. This isn't always an exact, but it's a good indicator. Trademarks typically are one and done. So you name something one time and you're done.
Okay.
Logos, you may revamp them and every once in a while, but for the most part, one and done, or once
Okay.
every, several years.
Gotcha.
Copyrights, on the other hand, you are consistently creating those. You are
Okay.
consistently recording new podcast episodes.
Yeah.
You are consistently taking new brand photos. And another way is typically think of the outside of it as a trademark. So the name of your podcast, that's a trademark. Each episode is a copyright.
Okay.
So that's what goes inside is the copyright.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. And a little bit, I think I know we had email back and forth a little bit. I know I got a trademark. My mother-in-law was a paralegal for 30 years for a large company, and she knew of an attorney. Is like, oh yeah, he does trademarks. Like, I don't know what a trademark is. Like, just tell me your website ID. And I got this stack of paperwork and some legalese stuff. It's like, okay, I think I'm good, but I don't know. So now maybe taking that step farther, maybe some people are listening, this podcast has been, downloaded all across the world, primarily United States, Canada, Mexico. But for any small business out there, I think they just hear legal, law, lawyer. Oh, that's expensive. They're just going to rip me off. I'm just some little podunk mom and pop shop, or I sell stuff on Etsy or whatever the case may be. Why in the world would I need to waste time, money on a trademark, a copyright, regardless of what goes into their, particular avenue?
Yeah. So ultimately, I'm very spiritual and woo-woo and very in that realm. And so the spiritual answer, like the woo-woo answer, if you want to talk about law of attraction manifestation, number one rule is to act as if. And most people that are starting a business, they have a business. Some may be thinking of it as like, oh, it's a side hustle. I'm trying to make this thing work, blah, blah, blah.
Mhm.
But their ultimate goal is to truly be a business owner, a full-time business owner.
Sure.
And to that, I say, well, you have to act as if. So if you are a business owner, this is what business owners do. They
Okay.
legally protect their business. They file the LLC. They protect their intellectual property. They do all of these things because that's how a business owner operates. And I will tell you, so many times clients will come to me and they're like, oh, I'm scared. I'm just this small business. But then we take care of the legal stuff, and they'll come back several months later or a year later. And they're like, oh my gosh, we've blown up. We've done this. We've done like things just started falling into place. I'm like, well, yeah, like now you actually see yourself as a business owner. You're not just trying to skirt by and just make it work. Like, no, you are an actual business owner now.
Right.
So coming from that space, it's, hey, act as if, and you will be. You are. So there's that answer. But also, when it comes to the nitty gritty, the nuts and bolts, intellectual property is the most valuable asset. And you want to make sure it's protected at all costs, because let's say you want to license something that you've created, or you want to sell something that you've created. Either of those things, whether you're licensing or selling, if it's not protected, your liability is now through the roof. I mean, just creating it, you're already creating liability on yourself, but it's now even more so once you're licensing or selling, because of that many more eyes on your product. So let's Disney, for example. They're the number one licensor in the world. And I don't always like to use this example. However, they're the biggest licensor in the world. Disney makes over $50 billion per year through licensing. That means they don't have to do anything except sign a contract.
Wow.
So when you have, I know we'll see the Disney store. Somebody will see the Disney store, or even, anything Disney.
Yep, Lego sets or whatever has that
exactly.
logo.
Any toys at Target, Walmart. Disney's not selling those. Disney has given somebody permission to create those to sell, and that company is paying Disney in order to do that.
Gotcha. Okay. So,
and even though Disney is this multi-billion dollar, worldwide conglomerate, it's still possible for small businesses. I have so many clients that do it on a much smaller scale, but it still works the same way. I have a client who she created amazing brand for nurses, and it just kind of happened. She didn't expect for it to happen. And because she has created this brand, protected all of her assets, she has entered licensing deals where people pay her to use the brand name and sell products.
Okay.
And so she doesn't have to do anything except for sign a contract, negotiate and sign a contract, and she gets paid for it.
Interesting.
And now she's going to sell her brand. She's in talks of selling. And when you go to sell your brand, so whenever you become a business owner, you should have an exit strategy in mind.
Sure.
But when you have that, you're going through that exit, what buyers are looking for, they want to make sure that they're not buying a liability. And if you don't have your intellectual property protected, that is a liability. Because how do we know that somebody hasn't just been watching from the sidelines, waiting for someone with bigger pockets to come in? That way they can sue them.
Sure. Okay. Would that be kind of like I know it's a slightly differentiation, but like the patent trolls you hear about where they scour the internet and, oh, they're not properly protected or copyrighted. We're just going to pounce on this. So,
yep.
Interesting.
Exactly.
So then interesting was obviously we're talking about more of protection and, liabilities with intellectual property, but in a way, and hence what I've had in this podcast numerous times of generating ways of passive income, potentially you could have your licensing, your intellectual property turn into, I guess that'd be kind of like a royalty as an IP.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
So your IP, getting royalties from that's one of the only true ways of having passive income. So I know there's obviously passive income is such a huge buzzword.
Right.
And a lot of times people, when they're talking about passive income, it's not truly passive.
Yeah.
Royalties are 100% absolutely something that's passive.
For investors seeking DSCR financing, check out timothyhero.com. The guy has closed over 150 DSCR loans in the last 2 years and has been appearing on podcasts and written about by journalists. He's well connected with some of the best lenders in the game and can get you the financing for your rental properties. Okay.
And so that's what I teach people as well is, hey, this is actually one of the only true ways that you can have passive income.
Okay. Gotcha. Side topic, and I'm kind of a tax and money nerd. Do you know on the royalties, is that, I know it, like you said, it is truly passive income, but does the IRS treat that? Are you taxed as like normal ordinary income or passive or portfolio or?
I don't know. That's a great question.
Okay. Not to put you on the spot. So.
Yeah, that's a great question. But I feel like it is well, I don't know. I don't know. I don't want to,
because I've always kind of wondered, like, and when you say truly passive, I look at, now at the time of this recording, you can actually make 4 or 5, even 6% on savings, money market accounts. I think of that as passive income, but then every year the bank sends a 1099 and you're taxed at your highest marginal income rate if it's over $10. So that's just, like I said, I kind of nerd out on different tax strategies and stuff. So it's just kind of interested on that. So all right. Now on the, maybe kind of on the flip side, you mentioned, licensing, possibly a true passive income stream, royalty. You mentioned, if you aren't acting like a business, this is what businesses do. Something could happen. In your experience from the time, starting Legalpreneur, what's been like a worst case scenario, either intentional or accidental, of someone using copyright material or not using it, and then it turned into a, I don't know, lawsuit or lost money or whatever the case may be?
Yeah. Yeah. So I think there's 2 good situations to mention here. So number 1 is something that has happened to a lot of people. And I think it's something that all business owners need to be aware of, because most likely we've all done it. And that is using photos that don't belong to you. That means,
oh, you mean I can't just Google something and pull a photo and there it is?
Yeah. Google, Pinterest, using any of those photos, not okay. That is 100% copyright infringement unless you have permission from the creator. And permission is just a license. So permission could say, you could ask the creator, hey, can I use this photo? And they say, yes, there you go. That's your license. If they say yes, but pay me this, then that's what you have to do to have the license.
Gotcha.
Now, it happens all the time. And the thing is, now there's basically like photography trolls, I guess, that are trying to intentionally put their photos out there to get people to rip them off, because it's almost like a business model for them. And the really, really bad trolls, there's been a couple of that judges are like, we're not hearing this case because you're a troll. Like, this is not what the courts are for.
Gotcha.
But what happens is because it's so easy to use some software, find who's using your photo without your permission.
Yep.
And so basically there's a couple of law firms that will do it. They'll send out these waves of cease and desist letters and then see who will make a payment. And of course, they'll try and negotiate, try and get as much money as possible. And then those that don't pay, they'll kind of wait and then maybe send another letter, but then they'll do some more research to figure out, okay, who looks like they have money that we can really pursue for this. And then they'll go and sue them because it is copyright infringement. So that's why you want to not be on that side of it. I've had clients pay anywhere from $200 to $2,000 or $3,000 for using those photos, which $200, it's like, yeah, that sucks. It's not a lot of money, but that adds up. And as a small business owner, if you're, really trying to make things work, like that
might be your profit margin for the month.
Yeah, exactly. So that's one tip, is don't use those photos. It happens all the time, but just if you're using them now, replace them. Now, and if you ever get a cease and desist letter, don't ignore it, because it probably is not a scam. I get a lot of people sending them to me asking, hey, is this a scam? And I'm like, no, absolutely not.
Okay. So it might not be a scam, but it might be one of those trolls, like you mentioned, where they're just trying to carpet bomb people.
Exactly. And then the other really truly worst case scenario that I've seen is somebody that's been in business for a long time. They've never protected their brand with a trademark, or I mean, not even just with for a long time, but any amount of time, and they don't protect their business, and then they end up losing the rights to their name because somebody else came along and kind of snatched up those rights. Gotcha.
So you build up the business, how many hours, years building it up, it's just legally protected it. Someone kind of rides your coattails, snatch it up, and the law looks, it's like, well, you didn't protect it, so we can't do much for you.
Exactly. And then the flip side of that is launching your business without looking into trademarks. So I've had plenty of clients come to me after they launched, 3-6 months ago, and they're like, I just got the cease and desist letter. What what is this? Like, what I just launched, like, I'm nobody. And it doesn't matter. Like, as long as you're using the name, like, they can come after you. And it's actually the trademark registration is the holder of it. It's their duty to police up anybody that's using the name, because if they don't, they could lose the rights.
Gotcha. Interesting. Okay. Yeah, I was thinking back, like you mentioned that, and obviously like LLCs, that's another topic for business integration. But I know, I've heard stories where someone gets oh, I got this lawsuit letter, what I do? It's like, well, at that point, settle. You can't put the seatbelt on after a car accident. So I think this probably definitely pertains there. So
yeah, exactly.
Well, I wanted to thank you again, Andrea, for coming on the show. I actually took some notes and actually did not know that about Disney. That's very interesting right there. But if anyone out there listening, maybe has a small business, a content creator, maybe a TikTok account that's just blown up or whatever the case may be, but they are looking at copyrights or trademarks or what direction to go, what's the best way to reach out to you and your network of law firms? As I know, you're not taking on new clients yourself, but your network you can refer people to. So
yeah, so definitely the legalpreneur.com, that has everything that you need. We also have a free business checklist. So this teaches you all the important legal protection, and then making sure you go line by line, making sure everything is set up correctly. And so that's at thelegalpreneur.com/free checklist. You can download that. And we also offer a free business audit to go along with that. So definitely get the download. You can get the business audit.
Free business audit. Perfect. And as always, and for everyone listening, I'll have these in clickable format in the show notes, so you don't have to hit rewind, find a pen and paper. It's like, was that a backslash? Was that a check? Or Legalpreneur? And again, thank you, Andrea, for coming on the show and educating my listeners on the importance of protecting your intellectual property.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thank you for listening. Be sure to share, rate, review, and subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. For more updates, check out www.wealthandfreedomnexus.com. Remember, nothing on this show should be considered tax, legal, investment, or professional advice. This show is produced solely for educational and informational purposes. Please consult an appropriate and licensed tax, legal, real estate, or business professional for specific advice for your situation. For distribution or publication rights or media interviews, please contact the host.